I never told my son about my $40,000 monthly salary, even though he always saw me living a simple life. One day, he invited me to dinner with his wife's parents, who were visiting from abroad. I decided to see how they would treat a poor person by pretending to be a broke and naive mother. But the moment I stepped through the door of that restaurant, everything changed. What happened that night devastated my daughter-in-law and her family in a way they never imagined. And trust me, they deserved it. Let me explain how I got there. Let me tell you who I really am, because my son, Marcus, at 35 years old, never knew the truth about his mother. To him, I was always just the woman who left early for the office, who came back tired in the evenings, who cooked with whatever was in the fridge. Just another employee, maybe a secretary, someone ordinary, nothing special. And I never corrected him. I never told him that I earned $40,000 every month, that I had been a senior executive at a multinational corporation for almost 20 years, signing million-dollar contracts and making decisions that affected thousands of people. Why tell him? Money was never something I needed to hang on the wall like a trophy. I grew up in an era where dignity was carried within, where silence was worth more than hollow words. So I guarded my truth. I lived in the same modest apartment for years. I used the same leather handbag until it was worn out. I bought clothes at discount chains, cooked at home, saved everything, invested everything, and became rich in silence. Because true power doesn't shout. True power observes. And I was observing closely when Marcus called me that Tuesday afternoon. His voice sounded different, nervous, like when he was a kid and had done something wrong. "Mom, I need to ask you a favor. Simone's parents are visiting from overseas. It's their first time here. They want to meet you. We're having dinner on Saturday at a restaurant. Please, come." Something in his tone made me uncomfortable. It wasn't the voice of a son inviting his mother. It was the voice of someone asking not to be embarrassed, to fit in, to make a good impression. "Do they know anything about me?" I asked calmly. There was a silence. Then Marcus stammered, "I told them you work in an office, that you live alone, that you're simple, that you don't have much." There it was, the word simple, as if my entire life could be contained in that miserable adjective, as if I were a problem he needed to apologize for. I took a deep, deep breath. "Okay, Marcus, I'll be there." I hung up and looked around my living room. Old but comfortable furniture, walls without expensive artwork, a small TV, nothing that would impress anyone. And at that moment, I decided. If my son thought I was a poor woman, if his wife's parents were coming ready to judge, then I would give them exactly what they expected to see. I would pretend to be broke, naive, and desperate. A mother barely surviving. I wanted to feel firsthand how they treated someone who had nothing. I wanted to see their true faces because I suspected something. I suspected Simone and her family were the type of people who measured others by their bank accounts, and my instinct never fails. Saturday arrived. I dressed in the worst outfit I owned. A light gray, shapeless, wrinkled dress, the kind they sell at a thrift store. Old, worn-out shoes, no jewelry, not even a watch. I grabbed a faded canvas tote bag, pulled my hair back into a messy ponytail, and looked in the mirror. I looked like a woman broken by life, forgettable, perfect. I got into a taxi and gave the address, a high-end restaurant in the most exclusive part of the city, the kind where the menu doesn't list prices, where each table setting costs more than the average person's monthly salary. As we drove, I felt something strange, a mix of anticipation and sadness. Anticipation because I knew something big was coming. Sadness because a part of me still hoped I was wrong. I hoped they would treat me well, that they would be kind, that they would look past the old clothes. But the other part, the one that had worked 40 years among corporate sharks, that part knew exactly what was waiting for me. The taxi stopped in front of the restaurant. Warm lights, a doorman in white gloves, elegant people entering. I paid, stepped out, took a deep breath, crossed the threshold, and there they were. Marcus was standing next to a long table near the windows. He wore a dark suit, a white shirt, and shiny shoes. He looked anxious. Beside him was Simone, my daughter-in-law. She wore a tailored cream dress with gold accents, high heels, her perfectly straight hair falling over her shoulders. She looked impeccable, as always. But she wasn't looking at me. She was looking towards the entrance with a tense, almost embarrassed expression. And then I saw them, Simone's parents, already seated at the table, waiting like royalty on their thrones. The mother, Veronica, wore a fitted emerald green dress, full of sequins, jewels on her neck, wrists, and fingers. Her dark hair was pulled back in an elegant bun. She had that cold, calculated type of beauty that intimidates. Beside her was Franklin, her husband, an immaculate gray suit, a giant watch on his wrist, a serious expression. Both looked like they had stepped out of a luxury magazine. I walked toward them slowly, with short steps, as if I were afraid. Marcus saw me first, and his face changed. His eyes widened. He looked me up and down. I noticed him swallow. "Mom, you said you'd come." His voice sounded uncomfortable. "Of course, son. Here I am." I smiled timidly, the smile of a woman unaccustomed to such places. Simone greeted me with a quick kiss on the cheek. Cold, mechanical. "Mother-in-law, it's nice to see you." Her eyes said the opposite. She introduced me to her parents in a strange, almost apologetic tone. "Dad, Mom, this is Alara, Marcus's mother." Veronica looked up, studied me, and in that instant I saw everything. The judgment, the disdain, the disappointment. Her eyes scanned my wrinkled dress, my old shoes, my canvas tote. She didn't say anything at first, just extended a hand, cold, quick, and weak. "A pleasure." Franklin did the same, a weak handshake, a false smile. Charmed. I sat down in the chair at the end of the table, the one furthest from them, as if I were a second-class guest. No one helped me pull out my chair. No one asked if I was comfortable. The waiter arrived with the elegant, heavy menus, written in French. I opened mine and pretended not to understand anything. Veronica watched me. "Do you need help with the menu?" she asked with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, please. I don't know what these words mean." My voice came out small, timid. She sighed and ordered for me. "Something simple," she said. "Something that doesn't cost too much. We don't want to overdo it." The phrase hung in the air. Franklin nodded. Marcus looked away. Simone played with her napkin. No one said anything, and I just watched. Veronica started talking first about general things, the journey from abroad, how tiring the flight was, how different everything was here. Then she subtly began to talk about money. She mentioned the hotel where they were staying. $1,000 a night. She mentioned the luxury car they had rented, obviously. She mentioned the stores they had visited. "We bought a few things. Nothing major, just a few $1,000s. She spoke, looking at me, expecting a reaction, expecting me to be impressed. I just nodded. "How nice," I said. "That's lovely," she continued. "You know, Alara, we've always been very careful with money. We worked hard, we invested well. Now we have properties in 3 countries. Franklin has major businesses, and I oversee our investments." She smiled, a smile of superiority. "And you, Alara, what exactly do you do?" Her tone was sweet, but venomous. "I work in an office," I replied, lowering my gaze. "I do a little bit of everything, paperwork, filing, simple things." Veronica exchanged a look with Franklin. "Ah, I see. Administrative work. That's fine. It's honest. All jobs are dignified, right?" "Of course," I replied. The food arrived. Enormous plates with tiny portions, all decorated like art. Veronica cut her steak with precision. "This costs $80, she said, "but it's worth it. Quality is worth paying for. One can't just eat anything. Right, Alara?" I nodded. "Of course you're right." Marcus tried to change the subject, talking about work and some projects. Veronica interrupted him. "Son, does your mother live alone?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, she has a small apartment." Veronica looked at me with feigned pity. It must be difficult, isn't it? Living alone at your age without much support? And does your salary cover everything? I felt the trap closing. I barely replied, but I manage. I save where I can. I don't need much. Veronica sighed dramatically. Oh, Elara, you are so brave. Truly, I admire women who struggle alone, although, of course, one always wishes to give our children more, to give them a better life. But oh well, everyone gives what they can. There was the subtle but deadly blow. She was telling me I hadn't been enough for my son, that I hadn't given him what he deserved, that I was a poor, insufficient mother. Simone was looking at her plate. Marcus was clenching his fists under the table, and I just smiled. Yes, you're right. Everyone gives what they can. Veronica continued. We always made sure Simone had the best. She went to the best schools, traveled the world, learned 4 languages. Now she has an excellent job, earns very well. And when she married Marcus, well, we helped them quite a bit. We gave them money for the down payment on the house. We paid for their honeymoon because that's just who we are. We believe in supporting our children. She looked at me intently. And you, Elara, were you able to help Marcus with anything when they got married? The question floated like a sharp knife. Not much, I replied. I gave them what I could, a small gift. Veronica smiled. How sweet. Every detail counts, right? The amount doesn't matter. The intention is what's important. And right then, I felt the rage begin to stir within me. The rage wasn't explosive. It was cold, controlled, like a river under ice. I breathed slowly, kept the timid smile, and let Veronica keep talking, because that's what people like her do. They talk, they inflate themselves, they show off, and the more they talk, the more they reveal themselves, the more they expose the emptiness inside. Veronica took a sip of her glass of red, expensive wine, swirling it in her hand as if she were an expert. This wine is from an exclusive region in France. It costs $200 a bottle, but when you know quality, you don't skimp. Do you drink wine, Elara? Only on special occasions, I replied, and usually the cheapest one. I don't understand much about these things. Veronica smiled condescendingly. Oh, don't worry. Not everyone has a trained palate. That comes with experience, with travel, with education. Franklin and I have visited vineyards in Europe, South America, and California. We are quite knowledgeable. Franklin nodded. It's a hobby, something we enjoy. Simone is learning too. She has good taste. She inherited it from us. He looked at Simone with pride. Simone offered a weak smile. Thanks, Mom. Veronica turned to me. And you, Elara? Do you have any hobbies? Anything you enjoy doing in your free time? I shrugged. I watch television, cook, walk in the park. Simple things. Veronica and Franklin exchanged another look, a look loaded with meaning, with silent judgment. How lovely, Veronica said. Simple things have their charm too. Although, of course, one always aspires to more, right? To see the world, to experience new things, to grow culturally. But, well, I understand not everyone has those opportunities. I nodded. You're right. Not everyone has those opportunities. The waiter arrived with dessert, tiny portions of something that looked like edible art. Veronica ordered the most expensive one. $30 for a piece of cake the size of a cookie. This is delicious, she said after the first bite. It has edible gold on top. See those little golden flakes? It's a detail only the best restaurants offer. I ate my dessert, simpler, cheaper, in silence. Veronica continued. You know, Elara, I think it's important that we talk about something as a family, now that we are all here. She looked up. Her expression changed, becoming serious, falsely maternal. Marcus is our son-in-law, and we love him very much. Simone loves him, and we respect that decision. But as parents, we always want the best for our daughter. Marcus tensed up. Mom, I don't think this is the time. Veronica raised her hand. Let me finish, son. This is important. She looked at me. Elara, I understand you did the best you could with Marcus. I know raising him alone wasn't easy, and I truly respect you for that. But now Marcus is at another stage in his life. He is married, he has responsibilities, and well, Simone and he deserve to have stability. Stability? I asked softly. Yes, Veronica replied. Financial, emotional stability. We have helped a lot and we will continue to help, but we also believe it's important that Marcus doesn't have unnecessary burdens. Her tone was clear. She was calling me a burden, me, his mother-in-law. Simone was looking at her plate as if she wanted to disappear. Marcus had his jaw clenched. Burdens? I repeated. Veronica sighed. I don't want to sound harsh, Alara, but at your age, living alone with a limited salary, it's natural for Marcus to worry about you, to feel that he must take care of you, and that's fine. He is a good son. But we don't want that worry to affect his marriage. Do you understand me? Perfectly, I replied. Veronica smiled. I'm glad you understand. That's why we wanted to talk to you. Franklin and I have thought about something. She paused dramatically. We could help you financially, give you a small monthly allowance, something that allows you to live more comfortably without Marcus having to worry so much. Obviously, it would be modest. We can't work miracles, but it would be a support. I remained silent, watching her, waiting. She continued, and in exchange, we would only ask you to respect Marcus and Simone's space. Not to seek them out so much, not to pressure them, to give them the freedom to build their life together without interference. How does that sound? There was the offer, the bribe disguised as charity. They wanted to buy me off. They wanted to pay me to disappear from my son's life, so I wouldn't be a nuisance, so I wouldn't embarrass their precious daughter with my poverty. Marcus exploded. Mom, that's enough! You don't have to— Veronica interrupted him. Marcus, calm down. We're talking like adults. Your mother understands, right, Alara? I picked up my napkin, calmly wiped my lips, took a sip of water, and let the silence grow. Everyone was looking at me. Veronica with expectation, Franklin with arrogance, Simone with shame, Marcus with desperation. And then I spoke. My voice came out differently. It was no longer timid. It was no longer small. It was firm, clear, and cold. That's an interesting offer, Veronica. Truly, very generous of you. Veronica smiled victoriously. I'm glad you see it that way. I nodded. But I have a few questions, just to understand clearly. Veronica blinked. Of course, ask whatever you like. I leaned forward slightly. How much exactly would you consider a modest monthly allowance? Veronica hesitated. Well, we were thinking about $500, maybe $700, depending. I nodded. I see. $700 a month for me to disappear from my son's life. Veronica frowned. I wouldn't put it like that, but yes. I responded. That is exactly how you put it. She adjusted in her chair. Alara, I don't want you to misunderstand. We just want to help. Of course, I said. Help. How did you help with the house down payment? How much was that? Veronica nodded proudly. $40,000. Actually, $40,000. Ah, $40,000. How generous. And the honeymoon? $15,000, Veronica said. It was a 3-week trip through Europe. Incredible. Unbelievable, I replied. So you've invested about $55,000 in Marcus and Simone. Veronica smiled. Well, when you love your children, you don't hold back. I nodded slowly. You're right. When you love your children, you don't hold back. But tell me something, Veronica. All that investment, all that money, did it buy you anything? Veronica blinked, confused. Like, did it buy you respect? I continued. Did it buy you real love? Or did it just buy obedience? The atmosphere changed. Veronica stopped smiling. Excuse me. My tone became sharper. You've spent the entire night talking about money, about how much things cost, how much you spent, how much you have. But you haven't asked even once how I am, if I'm happy, if something hurts me, if I need company. You have only calculated my worth, and apparently I'm worth $700 a month. Veronica paled. I didn't— Yes, I interrupted her. Yes, you did. Since I arrived, you've been measuring my value with your wallet. And do you know what I discovered, Veronica? I discovered that the people who only talk about money are the ones who least understand their true value. Franklin intervened. I think you are misinterpreting my wife's intentions. I looked at him directly. And what are her intentions? To treat me with pity? To humiliate me throughout dinner? To offer me alms so I'd vanish? Franklin opened his mouth but said nothing. Marcus was pale. Mom, please. I looked at him. No, Marcus, please don't. I'm done being quiet. I placed the napkin on the table. I leaned back in my chair. There was no more timidity in my posture, no more shrinking. I looked Veronica directly in the eyes. She held my gaze for a second, then quickly looked away, uncomfortable. Something had changed, and she felt it. Everyone felt it. Veronica, you said something very interesting a moment ago. You said you admire women who struggle alone, who are brave. Veronica nodded slowly. Yes, I did. Then, let me ask you something. Have you ever struggled alone? Have you ever worked without your husband backing you? Have you ever built something with your own two hands without your family's money? Veronica stammered. I have my own achievements. Like what? I asked with genuine curiosity. Tell me. Veronica adjusted her hair. I manage our investments. I oversee properties. I make important decisions in our businesses. I nodded. Businesses your husband built, properties you bought together, investments made with the money he generated, or am I wrong? Franklin intervened, annoyed. That's not fair. My wife works just as hard as I do. Of course, I replied calmly. I don't doubt she works, but there is a difference between managing money that already exists and creating it from scratch, between overseeing an empire you inherited and building it brick by brick, don't you think? Veronica pressed her lips together. I don't know where you are going with this, Ilara. Let me explain, I replied. 40 years ago, I was 23 years old. I was a secretary in a small company. I earned minimum wage. I lived in a rented room. I ate the cheapest food I could find, and I was alone, completely alone. Marcus stared at me. I had never told him this in such detail. I continued. One day, I got pregnant. The father disappeared. My family turned their backs on me. I had to decide whether to keep going or give up. I chose to keep going. I worked until the last day of my pregnancy. I went back to work 2 weeks after Marcus was born. A neighbor took care of him during the day. I worked 12 hours a day. I paused and drank some water. No one spoke. I didn't stay a secretary. I studied at night. I took courses. I learned English at the public library. I learned accounting, finance, administration. I became an expert in things no one taught me, all on my own, all while raising a child alone, all while paying rent, food, medicine, and clothes. Veronica was staring at her plate. Her arrogance was starting to crumble. And you know what happened, Veronica? I climbed up little by little, from secretary to assistant, from assistant to coordinator, from coordinator to manager, from manager to director. It took me 20 years of non-stop work, of sacrifices you can't even imagine. But I did it. And do you know how much I earn now? I asked. Veronica shook her head. $40,000 a month. The silence was absolute, as if someone had hit a pause button on the universe. Marcus dropped his fork. Simone's eyes went wide. Franklin frowned in disbelief, and Veronica froze, her mouth slightly open. $40,000, I repeated. Every month, for almost 20 years, that's almost $10 million in gross income over my career. Not counting investments, not counting bonuses, not counting company stock. Veronica blinked several times. No, I don't understand. You earn $40,000 a month? That's right, I replied calmly. I am the regional director of operations for a multinational corporation. I oversee 5 countries. I manage budgets of hundreds of millions of dollars. I make decisions that affect more than 10,000 employees. I sign contracts that you couldn't read without lawyers. And I do it every day. Marcus was pale. Mom, why did you never tell me? I looked at him tenderly. Because you didn't need to know, son. Because I wanted you to grow up valuing effort, not money. Because I wanted you to become a person, not an heir. Because money corrupts, and I wasn't going to let it corrupt you. But then, Simone whispered, why do you live in that small apartment? Why do you wear simple clothes? Why don't you drive a luxury car? I smiled. Because I don't need to impress anyone. Because true wealth isn't shown off. Because I learned that the more you have, the less you need to prove it. I looked at Veronica. That's why I came dressed like this tonight. That's why I pretended to be poor. That's why I acted like a broke and naive woman. I wanted to see how you would treat me if you thought I had nothing. I wanted to see your true colors. And boy, did I see them, Veronica. I saw them perfectly. Veronica was red with shame, rage, and humiliation. This is ridiculous. If you earned so much money, we would know. Marcus would know. Why would he believe you are poor? Because I let him, I replied. Because I never talked about my job. Because I live simply. Because the money I earn, I invest, I save, I multiply. I don't spend it on flashy jewelry or showing off in expensive restaurants. Franklin cleared his throat. Even so, this doesn't change the fact that you were rude, that you misinterpreted our intentions. Really? I looked at him fixedly. I misinterpreted when you said I was a burden to Marcus? I misinterpreted when you offered to pay me $700 to disappear from his life? I misinterpreted every condescending comment about my clothes, my job, my life? Franklin didn't answer. Neither did Veronica. I stood up. Everyone looked at me. Let me tell you something that clearly no one has ever told you. Money does not buy class. It does not buy real education. It does not buy empathy. You have money, perhaps a lot, but you don't have an ounce of what truly matters. Veronica stood up, furious. And you do? You, who lied, who deceived us, who made us look like fools? I didn't make you look like fools, I replied coldly. You took care of that all on your own. I just gave you the opportunity to show who you are, and you did it magnificently. Simone had tears in her eyes. Mother-in-law, I didn't know. I know, I interrupted her. You didn't know, but your parents knew exactly what they were doing. They knew they were humiliating me, and they enjoyed it until they discovered that the poor woman they scorned has more money than they do. And now they don't know what to do with that information. Veronica trembled. You have no right. I have every right, I replied, because I am your son-in-law's mother, because I deserve respect, not because of my money, not because of my job, but because I am a human being, something you forgot throughout this entire dinner. Marcus stood up. Mom, please, let's go. I looked at him. Not yet, son. I'm not finished yet. I looked at Veronica one last time. You offered to help me with $700 a month. Let me make you a counteroffer. I will give you $1 million right now if you can prove to me that you ever treated someone kindly who didn't have money. Veronica opened her mouth, closed it, and said nothing. Exactly, I replied. You can't, because to you, people are only worth what they have in the bank, and that is the difference between you and me. I built wealth, you just spend it. I earned respect, you buy it. I have dignity, you have bank accounts. I picked up my old canvas tote. I pulled out a black platinum credit card. I dropped it on the table in front of Veronica. This is my corporate card, unlimited limit. Pay for the entire dinner with a generous tip. Consider it a gift from a broke and naive mother. Veronica looked at the card as if it were a poisonous snake, black, shiny, with my name engraved in silver letters, Elara Sterling, Regional Director. Her hand trembled slightly when she picked it up. She turned it over, observed it, then looked at me. Her eyes no longer held that superior shine. Now there was something different, something I never thought I'd see in her. Fear. I don't need your money, she said, her voice broken. I know, I replied. But I didn't need your pity either. And yet, You offered it to me throughout the entire dinner, so take it as a gesture of courtesy or good manners, something you clearly didn't learn despite all your travels through Europe. Franklin gently hit the table. Enough. This is out of control. You are disrespecting us. Respect? I repeated. How interesting that you use that word now. Where was your respect when your wife asked if my salary was enough to live on? Where was it when she suggested I was a burden to my son? Where was it when she offered to buy me off so I'd disappear? Franklin clenched his jaw. Veronica just wanted to help. I corrected her. Veronica wanted to control. She wanted to ensure that the poor mother wouldn't ruin her daughter's perfect image. She wanted to eliminate the weak link in the chain. The problem is, she chose the wrong link. I looked at Simone. Her head was bowed, her hands in her lap, trembling. Simone, I said softly. She looked up. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I didn't know that my parents... Don't finish that sentence, I interrupted her. Because you did know. Maybe you didn't know about my money, but you knew how your parents are. You know how they treat people they consider inferior, and you did nothing to stop them. Simone sobbed. I wanted to say something, but they are my parents. I know, I replied. And Marcus is my son, and yet I let him make his own decisions. I let him choose his life, his wife, his path, because that is how you love, with freedom, not with control, not with money, not with manipulation. Marcus came closer to me. Mom, forgive me. Please forgive me for never asking, for assuming, for thinking you were... His voice cracked. I hugged him. You don't have to apologize, son. I did what I did for a reason. I wanted you to be independent, to value the right things, not to depend on me financially, to build your own life. But you made me feel like I had to protect you, Marcus said, that I had to worry about you, that you were fragile. I know, I replied. And it wasn't wrong that you thought that, because that's how you learn to care, to worry about others, to be empathetic. Those are lessons money can't buy. Marcus hugged me tightly. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Veronica was still standing, rigid, watching the scene with a mixture of confusion and contained rage. This doesn't change anything, she finally said. You lied. You deceived us. You came here with hidden intentions. You acted in bad faith. That's true. I nodded. I acted. I pretended to be something I'm not. Exactly what you do every day. What is that supposed to mean? Franklin asked. It means that you hide behind your money, behind your jewels, behind your trips, behind everything you can buy, but inside you are empty. You don't have deep conversations. You don't have real interests. You have nothing to offer beyond a bank account. Veronica gave a dry, bitter laugh. Coming from someone who lied all night, that's hypocrisy. Perhaps, I replied, but my lie exposed the truth, your truth, and now you can't hide. Now you know that I saw you, that I felt every comment, that I stored every insult disguised as advice, and that I will never forget it. The waiter timidly approached. Excuse me, would you like anything else? Franklin shook his head abruptly. Just the check. The waiter nodded and disappeared. Veronica sat back down, defeated. Her posture was no longer elegant. It was the posture of someone who had just lost something important, and it wasn't money, it was power. Elara, she said, in a softer, less aggressive voice, I don't want this to ruin the relationship between our families. Marcus and Simone love each other. They have a life together. We can't let this... I interrupted her. Let this what? Let this ruin your plans. Let this expose what you really think. It's too late for that, Veronica. The damage is done. But we can fix it, she insisted. We can start over. No, I cut her off firmly. We can't, because now I know who you are, and you know who I am. And that truth cannot be erased with empty apologies or fake smiles. You treated me like trash, and you did it with pleasure because you thought you could. Franklin cleared his throat. You were the one who came here lying. You provoked this situation. You're right, I nodded. I provoked this because I needed to know. I needed to confirm what I already suspected. That you are not good people, that your money doesn't make you better, that you are exactly the kind of people who despise others for not having the same things. Veronica wiped away a tear. We are not bad people. Maybe not, I replied, but you are definitely not good, and there is a huge difference between those two things. The waiter returned with the check and left it in the center of the table. No one touched it. Veronica looked at my black card still in her hands, then looked at me. I'm not going to use your card, she said. We will pay our own bill, as we always do. Perfect, I replied. Then keep that card as a souvenir, as a reminder that not everything is as it seems, that the woman you scorned all night has more than you will ever have. And I'm not just talking about money. Veronica put the card down on the table. I don't want it. I don't want your moral lecture either. I pushed it back toward her. Keep it anyway, because something tells me you'll need it. Someday you'll run into someone like me, someone who pretends to be less than they are, and you'll make the same mistake again, because people like you never learn. Franklin took out his wallet, pulled out several credit cards, all golden, all shiny. He chose one and put it on the check. The waiter took it and left. No one spoke during those waiting minutes. The silence was thick, uncomfortable, and heavy. Simone cried quietly. Marcus held my hand. Veronica stared at the wall. Franklin checked his phone to avoid eye contact. The waiter returned. Sir, your card was declined. Franklin looked up abruptly. How was it declined? The waiter repeated. Declined. Do you have another form of payment? Franklin turned red. That's impossible. That card has an extremely high limit. It must be a system error. The waiter shrugged. I can try again if you like. Franklin handed him another card. The waiter left. Veronica nervously looked at her husband. What happened? I don't know, Franklin replied, irritated. It must be a bank error. Maybe they froze the account for security. It happens sometimes when you travel. I nodded with feigned understanding. Of course those things happen. How inconvenient. The waiter returned again. I'm sorry, sir. This one was also declined. Franklin stood up. This is ridiculous. I'm calling the bank right now. He stormed out of the restaurant. Veronica remained seated, ashamed, humiliated. This has never happened to us, she murmured. Never. What terrible timing, I commented without emotion. Marcus looked at the check. Mom, I can... No, I interrupted him. You are not paying for anything. I took out my wallet, a simple old leather wallet. I pulled out another card. This one was not black. It was transparent, made of heavy metal. A card that less than 1% of people in the world possess. I put it on the table in front of Veronica. She looked at it. Her eyes widened. She recognized what it was. That's a Centurion card. That's right, I replied. American Express, exclusive invitation, minimum annual spending requirement of $250,000, $5,000 annual fee just for having it, and benefits you can never imagine. Veronica said nothing. The waiter took the card carefully, as if it were something sacred. He returned in less than 2 minutes. Thank you, Ms. Sterling. Everything is settled. Would you like the receipt? It's not necessary, I replied. The waiter nodded and left. Veronica continued looking at the space where the card had been. I stood up, took my old wallet, my canvas tote, and looked at Veronica one last time. The dinner was delicious. Thank you for the recommendation of the place, and thank you for showing me exactly who you are. You saved me a lot of time, a lot of energy, and many future disappointments. Veronica finally looked up. Her eyes were red, not from crying, but from contained rage. This doesn't end here, she said, her voice trembling. You can't just humiliate us and walk out as if nothing happened. Simone is our daughter. Marcus is our son-in-law. We will still be family. You will have to see us. You are right, I smiled. I will have to see you at birthdays, Christmases, and family gatherings. but now I will see you differently. I will no longer wonder what you think of me. I already know. And you will know that I know, and you will live with that every time you see me, every time you pretend to be kind. You will remember this night." Franklin returned to the table. His phone was in his hand. His face was pale. "There's a problem with the accounts," he said. "A temporary block. For security. It will be resolved tomorrow." He looked at the table. "Did they pay already?" "Yes," Veronica replied without looking at him. "She paid." Franklin looked at me. His pride was shattered. "Thank you," he murmured. It was barely audible. "You're welcome," I replied. "That's what family is for, isn't it? To help each other, especially when someone needs a small allowance, say $700 or, in this case, $800, which is what this dinner cost." Franklin closed his eyes. Veronica clenched her fists in her lap. Marcus approached. "Mom, let's go, please. It's enough." I looked at him. "You're right. It is enough." I turned to Simone. She was still crying quietly. "Simone," I said softly. She lifted her head. "You are not to blame for how your parents are. No one chooses their family. But you do choose how you act, how you treat others, how you will raise your own children someday." Simone nodded through her tears. "I'm sorry," she whispered again. "Don't apologize again," I told her. "Just learn. Learn that money does not define people, that humility is not weakness, that respecting others costs nothing, and that if you ever have children, teach them to see the heart of people, not their bank account." Simone sobbed harder. Marcus hugged her. Veronica looked away. Franklin checked his phone again, avoiding all eye contact. I headed for the exit. I took a few steps, then stopped and turned around one last time. "Ah, Veronica, one more thing." She looked at me. "Do you remember when you said you speak 4 languages? Veronica frowned. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Just curious," I replied. "In which of those 4 languages did you learn to be kind? Because clearly it wasn't in any of them." Veronica opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Exactly," I said. "You can speak 100 different languages and still not say anything worth listening to." I walked out of the restaurant. Marcus walked beside me. The fresh night air hit my face. I breathed deeply. I felt as if a huge weight had been lifted off me. Not a physical weight, but an emotional one. The weight of pretending, of tolerating, of keeping silent. Marcus took my arm. "Mom, are you okay?" "Perfectly fine," I replied. "Better than ever. And you, Marcus?" Marcus sighed. "I don't know. I'm processing everything. I can't believe you never told me about your job, about your money, about everything you accomplished." I stopped and looked him in the eyes. "Does it bother you?" He quickly shook his head. "No, of course not. I'm proud, incredibly proud. But I also feel foolish, blind." "You are not foolish," I told him. "You simply saw what I wanted you to see. And I did it on purpose because I needed you to grow up without depending on me, without feeling you had an economic safety net waiting for you. I needed you to fight, to work, to value everything you achieved on your own." Marcus nodded. "I understand. But now I also understand why you never complained, why you never asked for help, why you always seemed so calm, because you needed nothing." I smiled. "I needed many things, son. Only none of them could be bought with money. I needed to see you grow up, see you become a good man, see you make the right decisions." "And I achieved that, even marrying Simone?" he asked in a weak voice. "Even marrying Simone," I replied. "She is not her parents. She can learn. She can change. But that depends on her and on you, on how you build your relationship, on what values you choose to follow." Marcus remained silent, processing, thinking. A taxi stopped in front of us. I had called for a rideshare as we left. I opened the door. Marcus stopped me. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you do it? Why did you come pretending to be poor? Why didn't you just tell them the truth from the beginning?" I closed the taxi door. I turned to him. Because I needed to know, son. I needed to confirm if my suspicions were correct, if Simone's family was really as I imagined, and unfortunately, I was right. Marcus lowered his gaze. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize for them, I told him. But you do have to decide what kind of husband you want to be, what kind of father you want to be someday. What do you mean? He asked. I mean that you have just seen two very different ways of handling money and power. Your in-laws' way and mine. They use it to control, to humiliate, to feel superior. I use it to have freedom, to help without showing off, to live peacefully. You decide which path to follow. Marcus slowly nodded. I understand. I opened the taxi door again and got in. I rolled down the window. Marcus came closer. Mom, one last question. Tell me, are you ever going to forgive Veronica and Franklin? I thought about it for a moment. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, I replied. Nor does it mean allowing it to happen again. I might forgive them someday when I see a real change. When they start seeing people as people, not as numbers. But until then, I will simply be polite, distant, and extremely cautious. And me? Marcus asked. Do you forgive me for not asking? For assuming? For allowing this dinner to happen? I looked at him tenderly. Son, there is nothing to forgive. You did what you thought was right. You wanted your family to meet. That is beautiful. What happened afterward was not your fault. It was theirs, and a little bit mine too, because I decided to play their game. Marcus smiled weakly. You won. I won, I nodded. But I don't feel victorious. I feel tired and sad because I confirmed something I didn't want to confirm. That some people will never change. That some families are broken even if they have money. That there are voids no bank account can fill. The taxi driver cleared his throat. Ma'am, should we go? Yes, I replied. Give me 1 second. I looked at Marcus one last time. Go to Simone. Talk to her, listen to her, support her, but also be honest. Tell her how you felt tonight. Tell her what you expect from her family and from her. Because if you don't establish boundaries now, this will happen again and again. I will, Marcus promised. I love you, Mom, and I mean it more now than ever, because now I know who you really are, and you are incredible. I smiled. I love you too, son. I always have. I always will, no matter how much money I have or don't have, because love has no price, and that is a lesson Veronica and Franklin will never learn. Marcus stepped away from the taxi. I gave a signal to the driver. Can we go? The taxi started. I looked out the window. I saw Marcus walking back toward the restaurant, his shoulders slumped, thoughtful. He was probably going back to find Simone, to face his in-laws, to have difficult conversations. And I felt proud, because that meant he was maturing, he was learning, he was choosing to be better than the example he had just witnessed. The taxi sped through the city's illuminated streets. I closed my eyes and thought about everything that had happened, every word, every look, every moment of tension, and I wondered if I had done the right thing, if I had been too harsh, too cruel, too vengeful. But then I remembered every disguised insult, every condescending comment, every look of disdain, and I knew that no, I hadn't been too anything, I had simply been honest. Finally, the taxi was crossing the empty streets of the night. The lights of the buildings flashed quickly past the window. I opened my old canvas tote and took out my phone. A simple phone, nothing ostentatious, nothing attention-grabbing. I had 3 unread messages. One from my assistant asking about a Monday meeting, another from a colleague congratulating me on a closed contract, and one from an unknown number. I opened the unknown message. It was from Simone. Mother-in-law, please forgive me. I didn't know my parents would be like that. I am ashamed. I need to talk to you, please. I looked at the message for a long time. I thought about responding. Then I decided not to. No, she still needed time. She needed it too. Words rushed out of guilt rarely mean anything real. True changes take time, reflection, and consistent action. I put the phone aside. The taxi driver looked at me through the rearview mirror. Excuse me for asking, ma'am, is everything okay? I looked up at him. Yes, everything is fine. Why? Well, you got in very quietly. And normally the people who come out of that restaurant are happy, talking about how delicious the dinner was. You came out as if you had been in a war. I smiled slightly. Something like that. Was it that obvious? He shrugged. I've been driving a cab for 20 years. I've seen it all. Drunk people, people fighting, couples breaking up, families arguing. And you have that look of someone who just said something they'd been keeping inside for years. You're perceptive, I told him. It's my job, he replied. Plus it helps pass the time. Do you want to talk about it? You don't have to, but sometimes it helps to tell things to a stranger. Someone who isn't going to judge you, someone who doesn't know you. I thought about his offer. It was tempting, but I shook my head. Thank you, but I think I've talked enough for today. He nodded. I understand, but let me tell you something. Whatever happened in there, you did the right thing. I know because you are calm. You are not crying. You are not screaming. You are processing, and that means you spoke your truth. And the truth always brings peace, even if it hurts. His words surprised me. He was an older man, maybe 60 years old, with gray hair and working hands. A simple man, like the one I pretended to be. Do you believe in the truth? I asked him. I believe in honesty, he replied. Not always the absolute truth, because the truth changes depending on who tells it. But honesty doesn't. Honesty is saying things the way you feel them, without masks, without lies, even if it hurts, even if it makes things awkward, even if it costs you something. I nodded. You're right. My wife always told me I was too direct, he continued, that I said things without a filter, that I hurt people without meaning to, and maybe she was right. But she also told me that she never doubted me because she knew that what came out of my mouth was real, not calculated, not manipulated, just real. I smiled. She sounds like a good woman. She was, he replied. She died 5 years ago. I'm sorry, I said sincerely. He shook his head. Don't be sorry. We had 40 years together. 40 years of honesty, of fights, of reconciliations, of laughs, of tears. And not once did I go to sleep wondering what she really thought, because she always said it. And so did I. That is a gift. You're right, I murmured. It's a gift. The taxi stopped at a red light. Can I ask you something personal? The taxi driver asked. Go ahead. Are you rich? The question took me by surprise, not because of the question itself, but because of the direct way he asked it. Why do you ask that? Because I picked you up from a $1,000 per person restaurant. But you dress like someone who shops at discount stores. You have an old bag, worn-out shoes, but you talk like an executive. You move like someone with power, and you paid for my cab with crisp new bills that you pulled out of a wallet that looks 20 years old. Observant, I commented. Part of the job, he repeated. Then am I? It depends on how you define rich, I replied. If you are talking about money, yes, I have enough. More than enough. If you are talking about happiness, I also have peace, health, a son I love, work I am passionate about. That makes me rich in many ways. He nodded, satisfied. I knew there was something. Truly rich people don't need to prove it. The light changed to green. The taxi moved forward. And what happened in that restaurant? He asked. If it's not too indiscreet. I pretended to be poor, I replied, to see how they would treat me. He let out a loud laugh. Seriously? That is brilliant. And how did they treat you? Like trash, I said without emotion. They humiliated me. They offered me alms. They treated me as if I were invisible, less than human. He stopped laughing. I'm sorry. That must have hurt. A little, I admitted. But it also confirmed something for me. That I was right about those people. That they weren't worth my time. That they didn't deserve my respect. And now they know it. Now they know who I am. And they will have to live with that shame. The taxi driver whistled softly. That must have been epic. It was, I smiled. It definitely was. We arrived at my building. An older, middle-class building. Nothing luxurious, nothing impressive, but comfortable, safe, home. The taxi driver parked and looked at the building. "You live here?" "I live here," I confirmed. He shook his head, astonished. "You truly are special. Most people with money move to expensive areas, to buildings with doormen, private security, gyms, and pools. You live like a normal person." "I am a normal person," I replied. "I just have more money than most. But that doesn't make me different. It doesn't make me better. Money is just a tool, not an identity." He smiled. "I wish more people thought that way. The world would be better." I took out my wallet. "How much is it?" $30, he replied. I gave him a $100 bill. "Keep the change, ma'am. This is too much." "It's not," I said. "You listened to me. You gave me perspective. You reminded me that there are still good people. That is worth more than $70. He took the bill carefully. "Thank you. Truly. Thank you." "Thank you," I replied. "And take care of that honesty. It's rare. It's valuable. Don't lose it." "I won't," he promised. I got out of the taxi, closed the door. He rolled down the window. "Ma'am, one last thing. Tell me, whatever happened tonight, don't regret it. Don't feel sorry, because people like you, the people who speak the truth, even if it hurts, are the ones who change the world. Little by little, one conversation at a time." I smiled. "Thank you. I will remember that." The taxi drove away. I stood in front of my building, looking up at my 5th-floor window. The light was off, dark, silent, waiting for me. I entered the building and walked up the stairs. I never used the elevator. I preferred to walk, to stay active. I reached my door. I took out my keys, the same keys I had had for 15 years. I opened the door. The apartment was cold, empty. I turned on the light. Everything was in its place. The simple living room, the small kitchen, the dining room with mismatched chairs, the walls without expensive artwork. And I felt at peace because this place was mine, truly mine, not bought to impress, not decorated to show off, simply a space where I could be myself, without masks, without pretensions. I took off my old shoes, took off the wrinkled gray dress, and put on comfortable clothes, and old, soft, familiar pajamas. I made myself some tea, sat on the sofa, and turned on the television. News. Nothing interesting. I turned it off. I sat in silence, thinking, processing, feeling. And for the first time in many years, I felt completely free. Free from pretending, free from being silent, free from tolerating, free from being less than I was. Because that night, I didn't just expose Veronica and Franklin. I also liberated myself from expectations, from judgment, from the need to hide who I was. And that was invaluable. More than any amount in my bank account. My phone vibrated. Another message, this time from Marcus. "Mom, did you get home safely?" I smiled. I quickly replied, "Yes, son. I arrived perfectly fine. I'm home resting." His reply was immediate. "I love you. Thank you for everything, for being who you are, for teaching me, for never giving up." I closed my eyes. I felt a tear roll down my cheek. Not from sadness, from relief, from love, from gratitude. I replied, "I love you too, always." I put the phone aside. I drank my tea. I looked around my simple apartment, my sanctuary, my truth, and I smiled. Because at the end of the day, it didn't matter how much money I had. It didn't matter how high I had climbed in my career. The only thing that mattered was this moment, this peace, this honesty with myself. I woke up early on Sunday, as always. 40 years of working had trained me to rise with the sun. Even though it was my day off, my body no longer knew how to sleep late. I prepared strong coffee, black. I sat by the window with a hot mug in my hands. I watched the city wake up, the vendors opening their stalls, people walking somewhere. Life continued as always, indifferent to personal dramas. My phone started ringing. It was a familiar number, Marcus. I answered. "Good morning, son." His voice sounded tired. "Mom, I need to talk to you." "Did something happen?" "A lot," he replied. "Last night, Simone and I talked for hours. Her parents were there too. It was intense." I took a sip of coffee. "Tell me." Marcus sighed deeply. "After you left, I went back to the restaurant. Veronica and Franklin were still there, waiting for their cards to work. It was humiliating for them. Simone was devastated, crying, and I was furious, more furious than I have been in years." I waited in silence. He continued, "I told them everything I felt during that dinner. I told them I was ashamed of them, that they treated my mother like trash, that their behavior was unacceptable, that I wouldn't tolerate it ever again." "And what did they say?" I asked. At first, Veronica tried to defend herself. She said they just wanted to protect Simone, that they wanted to make sure I had a stable family, that they didn't have bad intentions. Franklin said I was exaggerating, that it had been a normal dinner, that your reaction was disproportionate. I squeezed the mug in my hands. Typical. "But then Simone spoke," Marcus continued. "She told her parents that they were wrong, that they had been cruel, that she had seen every comment, every look, every disguised insult, and that she was ashamed to be their daughter at that moment." His voice cracked. "Mom, I had never seen Simone confront her parents like that." I smiled slightly. "That's good. It means she's waking up." "Veronica got hysterical," Marcus said. "She started yelling that Simone was ungrateful, that they had sacrificed everything for her, that they had given her the best life, that she had no right to judge them." Franklin backed her up. "He said we were being manipulated by you, that you had planned everything to make them look bad." I let out a dry laugh. "Of course it's my fault." "That's what made them angriest," Marcus said. "I told them they were right, that you did plan everything, but that they fell into the trap because that's really how they are, because they really treat people they consider inferior badly, that you just gave them the opportunity to show themselves, and they did it perfectly." "Well said," I murmured. "Thanks. I learned it from you." There was a silence. Then Marcus continued, "Mom, I need you to know something. Last night, I made a decision. Simone and I are going to set boundaries with her parents. We are not going to cut off the relationship, but we are going to set clear rules. No comments about money, no comparisons, no attempts to control our lives. And if they can't respect that, then they will have to accept the consequences." "And did they accept?" I asked. "No," he replied. "They left furious. They said we were ungrateful, that we would regret it someday, that when we needed help, they wouldn't be there. Franklin said he was going to reconsider his will. Veronica said Simone had chosen the wrong family." I shook my head. "Emotional blackmail, the last resort of people without arguments." "Exactly," Marcus said. "But it didn't work. Simone stood firm. I did too. They left the restaurant without saying goodbye, without looking back. And honestly, Mom, I felt relief, as if a huge weight had been lifted off me." "That's because it was," I told him. "You lifted the weight of living under their expectations, under their control. Now you can build your life however you want, not as they dictate." "Thank you, Mom," Marcus said, his voice emotional. "Thank you for doing what you did last night. I know it was difficult. I know it was awkward, but we needed to see it. I needed to see who they really were, and Simone needed to see that there was another way to live, a more honest, more authentic way." "You are welcome, son. I only did what I believed was right." "There is something else," Marcus said. "Simone wants to come see you. She wants to apologize in person. She wants to talk to you, not as a daughter-in-law trying to look good, but as a woman trying to learn. What do you think?" I thought for a moment. "Tell her she can come, but not today. Give her a few days to process, to think carefully about what she wants to say. Rushed apologies are hollow. The ones that take time are real." "I'll tell her," Marcus promised. "Mom, one more question. How are you doing after all of this? How do you feel?" I looked out the window. The sun was fully up now. The day had officially begun. "I'm well," I replied. "Better than well." I'm at peace because I finally said everything I needed to say, and I don't regret anything." "I'm glad to hear that," Marcus said. "I love you." "I love you too. Rest. I'll see you soon." I hung up the phone, finished my coffee, and stood up. I decided to do something I hadn't done in a long time. Go for a walk aimlessly, without rushing, just walking and thinking. I dressed in comfortable clothes, old jeans, a simple top, worn sneakers. I grabbed my keys and went out. The streets were full of life. Families strolling, children running, couples holding hands, vendors offering food. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. I walked through the nearby park and sat on a bench watching people pass by. And I realized something. Most of these people probably didn't have much money. They lived with just enough, worked hard, and struggled every day. But they smiled, hugged each other, and enjoyed the moment. And then I thought about Veronica and Franklin, with all their money, their properties, their trips, their jewels. Were they really happy? Or were they just busy trying to prove something? Trying to fill a void with material things, trying to buy value, respect, and love, things that could never be bought. An older woman sat down next to me. "Good morning," she said with a smile. "Good morning," I replied. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" she commented. "Very beautiful," I nodded. She took bread from her bag and started feeding the pigeons. "I come here every Sunday," she said. "It's my moment of peace before the week gets crazy again." "I understand that," I said. "I needed a moment of peace, too." "Difficult week?" she asked. "Something like that," I replied. "More like a difficult night." She nodded wisely. "Sometimes a single night can change everything." "You're right," I murmured. "Can I give you some unsolicited advice?" "Go ahead," I smiled. She pointed to the pigeons. "Look at those birds. Some are big, some are small, some have pretty feathers, others have scruffy feathers, but they all eat from the same bread. They all share the same space. None of them thinks they are better than the others." "That's a nice metaphor," I said. "It's not a metaphor," she replied. "It's the truth. Humans are the only animals that invent false hierarchies, that measure value with external things. Pigeons don't do that. They just live. They just are. We should learn from them." I smiled broadly. "You are completely right. I should give classes to some people I know." She laughed. "Oh, child, at my age, I don't give classes. I just observe and share what I see. But most people don't listen. They are too busy running, buying, competing, forgetting that in the end, we all end up in the same place. With or without money, with or without jewels, with or without properties. We all end up turning into dust." "How philosophical," I commented. "How realistic," she corrected. "I have lived 82 years. I have seen it all, and I can tell you something. The most miserable people I met were the ones who had the most, because it was never enough. They always wanted more. They always competed. They always compared. And they died without having truly lived, without having truly loved, without having truly been." Her words resonated deep within me, as if she had touched upon something I already knew but hadn't articulated. "Thank you," I told her, "for sharing that." She patted my hand. "You're welcome, child. And remember, it doesn't matter how much you have or don't have. What matters is how you treat others, because that is what remains. That is what transcends. That is the only inheritance worth having." She slowly stood up, put her empty bag away, and waved goodbye. "Have a beautiful Sunday." "You too," I replied. I watched her walk away, a small woman, hunched with age, wearing old clothes and worn shoes, but with more wisdom than all the Veronicas and Franklins in the world combined. And I felt grateful for that encounter, for that reminder, for that truth, and powerful. I stayed on the bench for a while longer, thinking, feeling, processing everything that had happened, and I came to a conclusion. I didn't regret anything. No word, no action. Because everything I did last night was necessary. It was liberating. It was honest. And honesty, even when it hurts, is always the right path. 3 days passed before Simone knocked on my door. 3 days of silence, processing, and reflection. When I heard the bell ring that Wednesday afternoon, I knew who it was. I opened the door. There she was, without makeup, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, dressed in jeans and a plain top. No jewelry, no heels. She looked vulnerable, real, different from the woman I had seen in the restaurant. "Mother-in-law," she said in a low voice. "May I come in?" I stepped aside. "Go ahead." She entered slowly, looking around, observing my apartment with new eyes. The simple living room, the old furniture, the walls without expensive decor. She sat on the sofa when I pointed to it. I sat across from her, waiting, without pressuring, letting her find her words. "I don't know where to start," she finally said. "Start where you feel ready," I replied. She took a deep breath. "I came to apologize, but not just with words. I came to explain why my parents are the way they are and why I stayed silent for so long." I listened in silence. Simone continued, her voice trembling. "My parents grew up poor, in a small town overseas, without electricity, without running water, working in the fields since they were children. They saw their own parents die young due to lack of medicine, lack of money. They went hungry, they suffered, and they promised themselves they would never be poor again. They would do whatever it took to get out of there." I nodded. "I understand. That explains a lot." "They worked like animals," Simone continued. "They saved every penny. They immigrated looking for opportunities. Franklin built his business from scratch, literally from scratch. And when they started earning money, they never forgot what it was like not to have it. That's why they talk about it so much. That's why they measure everything by that standard, because to them, money means survival. It means security. It means never going back to that dark place." "It's understandable, Femeno," I said. "Trauma does strange things to people." Simone nodded. "But that doesn't excuse how they treated you. I know. And I want you to know that I saw everything, every comment, every look, every insult. And I stayed silent because I've been doing that my whole life, staying silent, accepting, letting them control everything. Because they taught me that contradicting them was a betrayal. It was ungrateful." "And now?" I asked. "Now I understand I was wrong," she replied. "That love is not control. That family is not blind obedience. That I can love them and still not agree with them. Marcus helped me see it. You helped me see it. That night at the restaurant, when you revealed yourself, when you told them everything, it was as if a blindfold had been taken off my eyes." Simone wiped her tears. "I always knew something was wrong. I always felt that the way they measured people was incorrect. But I convinced myself that it was me, that I was too sensitive, that I didn't understand the world. But you showed me that no, there is another way to live. A way where money does not define your worth, where humility is strength, where authenticity is wealth." I took a sip of water. "Simone, I didn't come that night to change you. I came to protect myself, to know who I was dealing with." "I know," she replied, "and I thank you for that, because your brutal honesty saved me. It saved me from becoming my mother, from perpetuating that cycle, from teaching my future children that people are valued by what they have. I don't want that. I don't want to be that." "And your parents?" I asked. "How are they after all this?" Simone sighed. "Furious, hurt, humiliated. Veronica hasn't spoken to me in 3 days. Franklin sent me a message saying I had disappointed him, that I had chosen strangers over my own blood, that I would regret it someday." She paused. "And you know what's strange? I don't feel bad. I feel free." "That's good," I said. "It means you made the right decision." Simone nodded. "Marcus and I set boundaries. We told them they can be a part of our lives, but only if they respect us, if they respect our decisions, if they stop trying to control us with money or emotional blackmail. And if they can't do that, then they will have to accept a distant relationship. How did they take that? I asked. Badly, Simone replied. Veronica said we were ungrateful, that they had sacrificed everything for me. Franklin threatened to disinherit me, to cut off all financial aid, as if that were the only thing we cared about, as if our love for them depended on their money. And that's when I realized they really believe that. They really think their value is in their wallet. It's sad, I commented. Very sad, Simone agreed, because they have so much and enjoy nothing. They just accumulate, compete, show off, but they never stop to ask themselves if they are happy, if they have peace, if they have real connections with people. They just count their properties and feel victorious, while inside they are empty. She was silent for a moment, then she looked at me directly. Mother-in-law, I want to ask you for something. Tell me. I want to learn from you. I want you to teach me how to live with dignity, how to be rich without needing to prove it, how to have peace in the midst of chaos, how to be strong without being cruel, because that night I saw something in you that I never saw in my parents. I saw class. I saw real power. I saw a woman who didn't need to shout to be heard. I smiled tenderly. Simone, I can't teach you that. That is learned by living, by making mistakes, by falling, by getting up. The only thing I can do is share my experience and tell you that the path is not easy. You will face criticism, judgment, people who won't understand why you live differently. But if you stay true to yourself, if you live according to your values, you will find peace, and that peace is worth more than any amount of money. I want to try, Simone said. I want to be better, not just for Marcus, but for me, because I deserve to live without that constant pressure, without that need to impress, without that fear of not being enough. Then do it, I told her, but don't do it all at once. Do it little by little. Start by questioning your habits, your purchases, your motivations. Ask yourself before every decision, is this for me or for others? Does this bring me peace or just appearance? Simone nodded, taking mental notes. And my parents? Do you think they will ever change? I looked at her with honesty. I don't know. Change requires you to recognize a problem, and they don't believe they have one. They believe the world is wrong, that people are ungrateful, that they are victims. Until they see that, change is not possible. But you can change. You can break the cycle. I will, she promised, with Marcus's help. And I hope with your guidance, too. You don't need my guidance, I replied. You just need your internal compass, that voice that tells you what is right and what is wrong, that voice you silenced for years to please your parents. Listen to it. Trust it. Follow it. Simone wiped away the last tears. Thank you, mother-in-law, for everything, for your patience, for your honesty, for not giving up on us. There is nothing to thank me for, I said. Just promise me one thing. When you have children, teach them the value of people, not the price. Teach them empathy, humility, and kindness. Things that don't cost money, but are worth everything. I promise, Simone said firmly. I promise with all my heart. We hugged. A real, warm, honest hug. No acting, no masks, just two women connecting as human beings. Simone left an hour later, lighter, freer, with hope in her eyes. I closed the door behind her. I sat back down on my sofa, looked around my simple apartment, and smiled, because this was enough. This was everything. An honest space, an authentic life, real relationships. I didn't need more. I never needed more. My phone rang. It was a message from Marcus. Mom, Simone told me about her visit. Thank you for welcoming her, for listening to her, for giving her a chance. I love you more than words can express. I replied simply, I love you too, son. Always. I put the phone aside. I sat by the window. I watched the sunset paint the sky orange and pink, and in that moment, I understood something fundamental. Real wealth is not about how much you have. It's about how much you enjoy what you have, how much peace you feel, how many genuine people surround you, how many times you can look in the mirror and be proud of who you are. Veronica and Franklin had millions, but I had this tranquility, this authenticity, this pure love for my son, and that made me infinitely richer than them. I never pretended to be poor again. I didn't need to. I had learned what I needed to learn. I had seen what I needed to see, and I had liberated what I needed to liberate. Veronica and Franklin continued to be who they were, rich in money, poor in spirit. But that was no longer my problem. I had spoken my truth. I had set my boundaries. I had protected my peace. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't have to pretend who I was. I was simply Alara, mother, executive, woman, survivor, fighter, rich in every sense that truly mattered. And that was more than enough. It was everything. Did you like the story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments